So think about that. We did what we said we were going to do. We kept our promises. We balanced our budget without raising taxes. We helped improve the economy by understanding that people create jobs, not the government, making it easier for the people of our state to create more jobs. And we ultimately made the government work better for the people we serve. Now, at any other time, any other circumstance, that'd be a pretty compelling case to be made for re-election in 2014, wouldn't it? I mean, that'd be pretty good for me and for Rebecca and for the senators and everybody else on the ballot in the future. That'd be almost a slam dunk for re-election. We made our promises. We delivered on them. We made our state better. We're heading in the right direction. And yet, on June 5th, I'll be only the third governor in American history to face a recall election. Why is that? Well, you see, there's one other thing we did along the way. I figured, as did the lawmakers, if we're going to ask public employees like me and all the state representatives and state senators here, if all of us were going to be asked to pay a little bit more for our health insurance and a little bit more for our retirement, although arguably still much less than what middle-class taxpayers pay on average in this state, that we should give the good, decent, hard-working public servants of our state, the nearly 300,000 people who work in our schools and our cities and our towns and our state government, those great people who work hard for us every day, we should give them the freedom of choice. The freedom to choose whether or not they want to be in a public employee union and no longer be forced to be in those unions in the first place. You see, let's get to the heart of this. That's what it's all about. That's why they bussed and shipped and flew in all those people from out of state, from Chicago and Washington, Nevada, New York, New Jersey, and other places. That's why the tens of millions of dollars were spent last summer against Alberta and the others in the recall elections, and why they're going to spend tens of millions of dollars more against me and Rebecca and the 4 state senators. It's not because of collective bargaining. It's not because of pensions or health care. It's because they want the money. Not the money for the workers, not the money for the members. They want the money so that the special interests from out of state can continue to draw off of that money that will automatically go into their hands to pay for political activities in the future. It's never been about the workers' money. It's always been about the money they want in Washington. It's not their money. It's the taxpayers' money. Now I believe it's about something bigger as well, because I think, we didn't do it this way. Last year, we simply set out to fix a problem. Like all of you, a lot of you I see around here, I know own your own small businesses. We just came in like a small business owner and said, here's a problem, here's a solution, now let's just fix it. Now, along the way, should I spend some more time maybe explaining it? Absolutely. I'll tell you today, if I'd spent more time making the case in January and February about how our school districts were spending tens of millions of dollars more than they had to, because they had to buy their health insurance from just one company, I bet you a lot of taxpayers would have said, Governor, you need to fix that. If I'd spent time last year talking about the abuses in overtime that allow a bus driver in Madison to make $150,000 a year, people would have said, you got to fix that. If I would have talked about the abuses that allow a correctional officer to call in sick on his shift and then make time and a half by working the shift after that, people would have said, Governor, you got to fix that. But instead, I just went out and fixed it and then explained it afterwards. Now, I'll readily admit, I've learned from that, and I'm spending a whole lot more time explaining things in the future. I'll concede that. But if I got to be wrong on something, I'd rather be wrong on fixing something than talk about something I didn't fix in the first place, right? For us, it boils down to one thing, and it's not about that money. That's the issue the out-of-state big government unions are pushing. For us, it's about one word that's bigger than just what we're talking about here. It's ultimately about courage. You see, what we're going to do when we win, and I believe we'll prevail on June 5th of this year with your help, I believe when we win, it will send a powerful message, not only down the way in Madison, in our state's capital. It'll send a message in Springfield, and Austin, in Indianapolis, and in St. Paul, and in Albany, and in state houses all across America, and I believe it will send an equally powerful message, if not greater message, in the halls of Congress where people like Paul and Jim are trying to stand up and do the right thing to move our nation forward. I believe that when we prevail, it will send a message all across this country that if you do the right thing, if you stand up and do what we've all known for years needed to be done to put our state and our country back on the right track, there will be voters willing to stand up and lift you up and reaffirm that belief, because once and for all, we're doing the right thing together. But let me just be clear. Let me be clear with this, though. I'm an optimist, so I believe we're going to win. But Lord help us if we fail. If we fail, not only here in Wisconsin, but I believe anywhere in American political thought, I believe we set aside courageous actions in American politics for at least a decade, if not a generation. That is why we must not fail. So let me end with just two quick thoughts. One is, what can you do? John and I were just talking about this at dinner. It's real simple. I say it's 3 M's. Message, manpower, money, and in that order. Because the most powerful tool we have in this debate, the most powerful tool we have in this whole campaign is the truth. You see, the more we repeat the truth over and over and over again, and I joke about this. I used to say I sound like a broken record. Matt and Alex remind me that nobody knows what records are anymore. So I'll sound like a repeating iPod or a scratch CD or something like that. But the more we repeat the message, the better off we are. And you don't have to do it with a sign. You don't have to get in somebody's face and yell at them with a bullhorn. All you got to do is the next time you're at the grocery store, or you're at church tomorrow, you're with a coworker, just tell them a few things we talked about tonight. Say, you know what? It's kind of nice that while Illinois' got 9% unemployment, ours is below 7%. It's kind of nice that while other states are laying off thousands of public employees and cutting things like Medicaid, we don't have to make those poor decisions in Wisconsin. Those are things you can just slip in the conversation. You don't have to be obnoxious about it. You can just say it and see how people react. It's amazing what happens when they're enlightened with the truth. It's amazing out there. Paul does a great job the other day. My son Matthew said it was so cool to see Paul Ryan leading the way on the pathway for prosperity when he was out in Washington, D.C. It's amazing what the truth will do for people. But we need to continue to push that out there. Secondly, in the manpower, and you guys know it well here in Waukesha County, but we've got an incredible grassroots network all across the state, but we got to unleash it. We got to make sure, last weekend with the help of the state party, we made over 100,000 calls to identify voters across the state of Wisconsin. 100,000 calls with volunteers from people within the state of Wisconsin making those calls. That's unbelievable. And the third thing is we're going to have to get our message out, but the media oftentimes talks about money as though it only comes from a handful of really wealthy people. But the reality is, in my last report, more than 3/4 of my donations came from people who gave me $50 or less. People went to scottwalker.org and said, for $10, $20, $25, we're going to help get that message out. We can do it all across the state. And I believe we will. You see, the last thing I want to leave you with is this simple thought. I believe not only here in Wisconsin, but I believe in America. I believe that we're going to prevail because I believe it's a part of our DNA. I believe that this country, and I think about this all the time. I grew up, a lot of you know, I grew up in a small town called Delavan. My dad was a preacher. We were pretty poor. We didn't know it at the time, but our idea of a big vacation was however far our station wagon could drive a day and then turn around and come back, because that's about all we could afford out there. But along the way, I never got to places like Washington or Philadelphia or others like that. So last September, Tonette and I had the honor of going out to a Governor's Association meeting in Philadelphia, and we got up early in the morning. We went out with the National Park Service and saw Independence Hall. Certainly saw the Liberty Bell, but what I loved more than anything was going into Independence Hall itself. If you've even been in there, it's actually not bigger than this little area that's stanchioned off here. And as a kid, I loved history. I mean, I just loved it. I thought about our founders as though they were superheroes, bigger than life. Washington and Franklin and Jefferson. But you go in that room, you stand there and you look at those chairs like the ones you're all sitting here tonight. You see the chair up at the top where Washington sat with the half-rising sun, and you realize these were ordinary people. Ordinary people like all of us here this evening. Ordinary people did something quite extraordinary. You see, these were people who didn't just risk their political careers, didn't just risk their businesses, they risked their lives. Ben Franklin said it well. He said, we don't hang together, surely we'll hang separately. And that's laying it on the line. Moments like that remind me that for more than 200 years, our country has been based on people that, no matter what the crisis, be it economic or fiscal, be it military or spiritual, no matter what the crisis in our nation's history, what has made America great, what has made our country exceptional, what has made the United States of America the greatest country in the history of the world, is in those moments of crisis we've had men and women of courage in leadership positions who thought more about the future of their children and of their grandchildren than they thought of their own political futures. That's an important thought to leave with tonight, because this is one of those moments. This is one of those times, not only in our state, but in our nation's history. Let this be our call to action. Let this be the time when we say to our children and our grandchildren, we were there. We stood up and we ensured that at those times in our nation's history where they had great leaders who moved us forward based upon courage, what made them great wasn't the courageous act itself. It was the fact that there were fellow Americans willing to stand with them and move them forward and support them along the way. Let this be our call to action. Let this be our moment in history. Let us move not only Wisconsin, but America forward. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.